Welcome to the State of Security. I'm Sabrina and this is Ken.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Today we're going to discuss some cyber threats. According to Georgia Tech Information Security Center, they have predicted for 2012 that the following will be cyber threats: search engine poisoning, mobile web attacks, and the selling of social media data.
Okay.
So we've already addressed mobile web attacks pretty thoroughly. So we're going to discuss search engine poisoning today and APT,
Good.
advanced persistent threats. So we're going to zone in on those two things. First of all, Ken, what is this search engine poisoning all about? Because it sounds pretty spooky.
Yeah, so roughly about 40% of all malware is being picked up through search engines. So when you search for a topic, and it's a common topic, the hackers know that. So they're actually starting to do search engine on these keywords, putting in then malicious malware. So when you clicked on it, you're actually downloading it or going to a malicious site.
Okay.
So it was interesting, like I said before, about 40% of all the malware is being picked up by this. What shocks me is the fact that most companies can't even figure out how to do SEO, yet the hackers have already figured it out, and now are using it as an avenue for hacking.
Okay. And I heard that they actually do this with images as well?
Yeah, so that's the other thing, is not just links, it's actually when you search under Google Images and you see a nice image pop up, a lot of people don't consider that to be a threat, but you're actually clicking on a link, and that is now embedded with malware and taking you to malicious sites also.
So how do you really protect yourself against
So
this?
they put a bunch of stuff in there about, end user awareness, education of the users,
Yes.
etc. But right now, Google and the rest are trying to figure out how do they stop that, and they actually called it a link farm that actually has poison images as well as links. So it's something to be aware of. We thought it was an interesting concept and an attack vector that definitely is going to take more precedence in 2012.
Okay, now what about these advanced persistent threats? Could you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about this?
Yeah, the APT, not to be confused with EPT. The APT is something that we've seen a lot in the federal space. A lot of people talking about advanced persistent threat, what it is. It's really not a what, it's more of a who. And so when you look at that advanced persistent threat, it's really the threat agent really acting on and taking out and carrying out these attacks. And so when organizations want to really stop APT, it's really looking at what their threat model is. We're going to start to see a rise in organizations actually plugging threat into their risk equation, where before threat really wasn't a real part of, especially in the private sector, a lot of their risk. They did a lot of vulnerability checking, a lot of controls, but they never put that threat in there. So that APT, I think, is going to be something in 2012. We're going to see a lot more people start to look at what the threat agents are and who is responsible behind the attacks.
Okay, so who instead of a what? Very interesting way to look at it. Now, on a little bit of a, a sad note, we just wanted to mention Steve Jobs.
Yep.
And obviously that was very sad.
Right.
Very innovative and respectable person.
Right.
But it brings up the question, what's next for Apple?
Right. And I think everyone's looking for that. Obviously, with the closed architecture of Apple, one would think that they have the avenue right now to look at maybe making it more open. Closed architecture for Apple has done very well with the iPhone and some of the other devices, obviously the Macs, etc., for injecting malware and exploits specifically into the mobile devices. So it's done well for Apple having a closed environment versus the Android. But obviously, what is the new vision of Apple? Will that allow more openness and allow people to actually start plugging in to the operating systems and mobile devices more freely without having to go through the stringent Apple process?
So anything's really up for the future.
Yeah, I think it's a good stance right now for Apple to take a look and figure out, what makes the most sense from a security, but also from an end user perspective. And again, the Android has the ability for a lot of different features and functions that to get that same function for Apple, you would have to open up the architecture a little bit more and make it easier for people to write apps, polish them, and get them out there faster than what you see on the Apple framework currently.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we have for today. Remember, if you have any questions that you'd like Ken to answer, send them in to me at spowers@securestate.com. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
All right, take care.